There we go. Awesome. You're good. Can you see anything here? No. But it's still doing it. Let's see if we can go ahead. Oh. Are you good now? Awesome.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Maya Milhan, and I'm the lead recruiter for West-MEC, and I'm going to show you our central campus today. So just a couple quick items before we go ahead and get started. So first things first, this is our central campus in Glendale. It's off of 107th Avenue and Glendale. So it's just a couple miles west of the 101. This is one of our 4 campuses at West-MEC. So we do have 3 others across the West Valley. We have 28 programs total. You're not going to see all of them today, but you are going to see a really great sampling. We do have our recruiter Kaylee on the comment box, so if you have any questions throughout this tour, please feel free to put those in, and we'll be sure that we get those answered, or she'll tell me and I can answer them for you. Couple housekeeping items. Just please make sure that your questions and comments are relevant to our tour today, and that they are really following your class standards for really the way that you are communicating. So that's one thing. Next thing is really, like I said, this is one of 4 campuses. So if you do have a question about if we have a program that you're not seeing, let us know, and we can definitely answer that. Just a couple really quick pieces about really how West-MEC works. So all of our programs are certification-based career training programs. So that means that all of the programs you're going to see here today, students take normally junior and senior year of high school in addition to their classes at their high schools. So they spend part of their day at their high school, and then they come to our campus for part of their day as well. You're not going to really see any students on campus this morning because most of our students on this campus are here in the afternoon. So the morning time is a little bit more quiet here. But all of our programs, that looks a little bit different. If you have questions about the time frames, we can definitely let you know about that. All of these programs are really available to students that live within 12 school districts in the West Valley, pretty much Paradise Valley over to Wickenburg, down to Tonopah, around through Buckeye, Avondale, Tullison, up through Glendale, Peoria. So it's about 3,600 square miles, and it's the better chunk of the West Valley area. So again, if you have questions, if you live in those boundaries, let us know. I do know that we have some schools joining us this morning from Pendergast. Welcome. Pendergast is one of the districts that we work with, so just know that if you are a Pendergast student, you do live within our boundaries. So that's kind of the big picture, quick items. I am going to tell you more as we're walking through and point things out and really kind of help you understand this a little bit more. Just know that, like I said, since these programs are normally taken junior and senior year, students apply for these programs their sophomore year. So that's really kind of the time frame that we're looking at. So let me come grab the camera. Alrighty, so we're going to go check out some programs. So this first program here is our coding program. So we're going to see a lot of different lab spaces, and for coding that does look a little bit different because really the industry standard and the workplace that you're going to be really in this industry looks more like an office space for coding. So that's really what we have for our students. Coding is web and app design. So that is really taking a need or a business and being able to say, okay, this is what we need this website to look like or have this certain function, and then we're going to build it to meet all of those needs and criteria. So when you click a button on a website and it reroutes to a certain page, or when it looks a certain way, somebody actually coded it to look like that. So essentially you're kind of training websites and apps to have a certain function and look a certain way. We do have MacBooks for students to use in this program, so students don't need to provide their own computer for our class. And we do have all the really technology pieces as well. So this that you're seeing here is actually a server. So you see some fans moving over on the side, and then you see some liquid moving through, and that helps cool this. So technology like this does oftentimes create heat. So to make sure that that is safe, we have those other elements like the liquid and the fans to cool that down. So coding, really what I'll tell you is obviously technology is always a really big industry, but right now, everything that we're doing is in this virtual format, even this tour here today. Lots of new businesses need new websites, lots of new apps are being created, so there's a lot of different opportunities in this industry. There always is, but it's really growing quickly right now. The jobs that students can look at from this program are things like software developers and things of that nature. So really great, really introduction into the technology industry, and then there's lots of growth opportunities after that. So that's a coding program. It's 2 years long, and we do actually have that program at another campus as well. So some of our programs are replicated to make them a little bit more accessible for students. So this is our break room. Our programs, for the most part, are 2.5 hours a day. So normally the first year of a 2-year program, students come to our campus from 4 until 6:30, and the second year they come from 1 until 3:30. So they still have a full day of classes, potentially the first year at school, and then they still have a half day the second year. And they're still going to be on campus with us for 2.5 hours. So we have this space so that they can grab a snack, they can get something to drink, they can warm something up if they need some food, come over here and just take a minute to relax in the middle of their class. So normally our classes have about 15-minute breaks every so often, just so students do have the opportunity to kind of take a moment. Them together using a heat source. So an example of that is right here. So you can see this kind of bump right here where we took this plate and joined it to this pipe. So now these two are completely connected. They're not coming apart. So that is what we do in welding. Essentially, we can take these two pieces of metal and join them together. Welding does require some practice. This is the kind of thing that the first weld that you do is not going to be your best weld, and the more practice you have, the better you're going to get. So we have these booths for our students to come in and actually do their welds. So we have these plates where they'll put their piece of metal. We have our welders over here. And then these are our ventilation systems. So welding does create sometimes some gases and things like that that we want to get out of this space so that the air is safe for us to breathe. So in this program, students will come in here and they really practice on these plates a lot. So they'll learn a certain weld and they'll come in here and they'll just do that weld over and over until they can really see that weld getting better and better. We'll use different types of metal. So sometimes we're using kind of flat plates. Sometimes we're using round pipes that we're welding together like you see here. All of those are different. And even angles can be challenging too, because that's a new level of complication that you weren't doing previously. So you'll see that this can move. It's at kind of an odd angle right now. We can move this all the way up or down. So that allows us to really get a lot of great practice there. So we have a booth for all of our students in this area. We even do have an outside component. And the program does do some cutting as well. So we'll take two pieces of metal and kind of cut them into a new shape. So that's what a lot is happening out here. More booths down this area. So this is a 2-year program, and most of our programs at West-MEC are $125. This one is going to be a little bit more. So this one is actually $265 because students take a kit with them when they're finished with the program that has a hood, because welding does create very bright lights that's dangerous for your eyes. So students wear those, kind of looks something like this guy, all the time when they're welding, and they take that with them when they're finished with the program, as well as a jacket that protects their skin and clothes from sparks, and some gloves, again, that also protects them from sparks. Okay, so this next program is our precision machining program. So this is another 2-year program, and this program is actually only located at this campus. So precision machining takes a piece of metal and uses a specialized machine like this one. So this is students will put a piece of metal in here, and this spins really quickly. So then students can bring in something that's really sharp that will remove really fine layers of metal that looks like this. So you'll see they're kind of little really fine curly cues. So as they remove more and more layers, then it creates a specific part. So we can actually make lots of different parts in this program. So an example of that are on these blueprints. So students learn how to actually design this using specific technology, something like SolidWorks. And then they also learn this is what I need to do to be able to then really create this product using this machine. So they learn what all of those numbers mean, and then they can actually make that using this machine. So these are the lathes. Then over here, we have mills. This one, the piece of metal gets put here, and then something like a drill bit or something similar will come down and remove, again, those really fine pieces of metal. So this machine, this mill, is used for like square and rectangular pieces of metal, whereas the lathes are used for cylindrical or circular of metal. Both of them do have a little bit of these computerized components to really tell you kind of specific locations, so where you are on the part. So that means that we can make these parts very, very precise, which is really important because we do use these for a variety of different industries. So we can make a part for the automotive industry or for the aviation industry or even maybe the healthcare industry. So it's important that the part is exactly the size that they need to be successful in that. So that's why we have those computerized components. This is what we learn in the first year, is that manual version of the mill and the lathe. In the second year of the program, we have these three machines, which are called CNCs. So CNC stands for computer numerically controlled. So essentially, these are the computerized versions of these manual machines. So we have a couple that are our computerized mills, and then we have one that is our computerized lathe. So essentially, we will do the exact same thing where we put a piece of metal in here, but then we learn a code made of different numbers and letters and symbols that we will be able to type in and then just press start, close the door, and a couple hours later we come back and the part is done. So this is really important for manufacturing industry because this allows us to create more parts quicker with the same amount of staff. So we have the investment to purchase something like this, which these are pretty expensive. These are normally around $200,000, so they are quite expensive. But then that means that we don't have to have multiple salaries once we purchase these. So then we can have the same amount of staff, but increase the amount of different parts that we make. And then this guy is the CNC lathe. So it's the exact same thing as the other ones where you type in the code, put in the piece of metal, and close the door and come back a few hours later and it's done. So that is precision machining. It's another 2-year program. Phoenix has a lot of manufacturing. A lot of different industries want different parts made here, so there's a lot of jobs available for all of our programs, but especially for manufacturing. Some things, even like plastic chairs, like this one, are even made with these machine shops. So essentially we'll make a mold out of a big piece of metal, and then we can inject plastic into that. So there's a lot of different parts that can be made for a lot of different industries, which means that we need a lot of workers for that industry. And a lot of people don't even know that that program exists or that those jobs exist. So lots of different job opportunities there. Okay, next up, we have our Law and Public Safety program. So this program is another 2-year program, and this is really covering a few different things. So The big picture is kind of constitutional law, Bill of Rights, how to deal with people in hard situations, and really leading into things like the police academy, into the military, into dispatch, into corrections. So we cover quite a bit to prepare students for all of that. We do also even have students that come to this program to go into being a lawyer or a judge sometimes as well. So the first thing we have are these mock jail cells. There's very specific protocols and procedures to interact with somebody in a setting like this. So we teach all of our students that in these jail cells. You'll see that we have this guy, and he is 150 pounds. So part of this program is physical training. We have lots of different exercises that students complete, and one of those is dragging this a set amount of feet. I believe it's 32 feet. So students will really learn a lot of those different physical training components, because for the students that do want to go into the police academy or go into the military, there is physical training requirements, so that really introduces them to those different pieces. Then over here we have a little bit more of our forensics piece. So we will do fingerprinting, we'll do blood splatter analysis, we'll do shoe impressions. This isn't necessarily like a forensics program, but we do realize that some students want to go into kind of more being a detective and things like that, so we make sure that we include that. Then this space over here has a couple of different really roles. One big one though is you'll see that screen back there. We have a specialized computer essentially that can run up to 3,000 different scenarios. It's called a shoot, don't shoot. Essentially it's kind of like an Okay, so we're going to pop upstairs to our next program. Over here we have our administration. So we do have a counselor, we have an assistant principal on each campus. We also have a career services coach, which essentially works with our students and job opportunities. So they work with people in the area that would be hiring people with the skills and certifications coming out of our programs. So they work with students for mock interviews, and they create a professional resume with all of our students, and then they also help them find potential job options if that's kind of their goal for after finishing West-MEC. Okay. So this program is our avionics and drone electronics program. This is another 2-year program, and essentially for this program we are learning all of the communication, navigation, electrical systems in airplanes, all the switches and the dials, and really anything that is those critical technology-based systems in an airplane. So we have a couple different components in here. These first ones over here allow us, here's one that's kind of set up here, allow us to understand electricity and how electricity travels. So these are almost like kind of Legos for an electrical circuit. So these have different wires, you can see those in here, that plug in to all of these things that kind of look like headphone jacks. So as somebody plugs in a wire from one location to another, then the electricity can travel. So it should be able to turn on a light or kind of be able to do something based off of the electricity traveling through that circuit. So this helps students understand really how electricity travels, how these circuits are supposed to operate, which is really important when we're talking about navigation and weather systems and these dials that have to have electricity traveling to them, because these are all components that really, once an airplane takes off, there's no fixing it, right? This has to be done correctly before an airplane takes off, and it's critical for the airplane's safety. So this is what we call our glass cockpit over here. So you'll see that these are all of those kind of instrumentation pieces, so all of the dials that you see when you are looking in the cockpit of an airplane. We have all different kinds of levers. These are kind of some different switches and stuff to run the flaps on the wings of the airplane for takeoff or landing, and even the tail rudder. So the students build all of these components. They take all of the switches or the dials, and then they do all of this wiring piece. So they're the ones that actually put these in, and then they'll do all the wiring to make it work properly. And if it's not working properly, they'll learn how to go back and really kind of go back to the drawing board and figure out why it's not working and what they can do to make it work. Some more things you might see in the cockpit. And then back here, we have our drones. So the aviation industry is really relying heavily on drones right now. So these are used for something like after natural disasters, like a hurricane or a fire. They will actually fly drones in somewhere that might not be passable yet to get like rescue teams there and figure out, one, is it safe for them to go in? Two, where do they need to go? So where are the people that might be stranded or need some help, or where is the fire still active that needs to be put out? So these are really used for a lot of different things. Because of that, we learn how to build these, because as we really increase our really use of these drones, that means that we're also going to have to increase being able to produce them. So the students, this was just a kit, which was a pile of wiring and a pile of these plastic parts and the little propellers. The students completely built these and wired these. And then we'll test them to make sure that they do work properly. This is not a drone flying program, so you're not learning how to be a pilot for drones, but it is important that we know that they work properly after we build them. So that's avionics and drone electronics. Really, really awesome if you're interested in the aviation industry or even things like electrical engineering. Really great first step. Alrighty. So up on this second floor here, we just have some more classrooms. They are pretty standard, but I will pop the camera in as we go by just so you can see what they look like. So this is one of our more computer labs. We have some 3D printers for students to be able to use. This is our law and public safety classroom, so you'll see it's just normal desks. Okay. So the next program that we are going to go check out is over here. It's our Aviation Maintenance Technology program. This program is a little tricky for the virtual tours because it's in a giant metal building, and for whatever reason, that giant metal building does not like to get along with internet or cell phone service. So we're going to go over there, and I'm going to show you around and tell you more. We're going to be watching the connection on our end, so it looks like or if it looks like it's going to be a little challenging and the video quality might not be as good, we'll come back over here and tell you more about the program where we have a better connection, but we're hoping that today it's going to play nice and let us stay over there. But just wanted to give you that quick disclaimer just in case. So welcome to our airplane hangar for our Aviation Maintenance Technology program. So this program is a 2-year program, and it's actually the most time-intensive program that we have at West-MEC. So most of our programs, like I said earlier, are about 2.5 hours a day for 2 years. This one is 4 hours a day for 2 years, and then there are 2 weeks of summer classes that are 8 hours a day each summer. The reason for that is this program you are learning how to be a mechanic on airplane engines. So you'll see here that this airplane engine is not looking like it's just about to take off, and that's because our students are constantly working on these and constantly doing new things to all of our airplanes. But because you are learning how to be that mechanic and replace components and maintain components and things of that nature that are critical to flight, this certification is through the FAA, which is the Federal Aviation Administration. And not only are they extremely strict on the requirements for the program, but they also realize that you have to cover a lot of ground for this. So most of our programs, you finish about 900 hours with us for the certification. This program, you finish almost 1,900 hours with us. But it's really important because, as our teachers always say, you can't pull over on a cloud. So we want to make sure that you are really well versed in all of this and you are really prepared to then go work on these systems and be successful in that venture. So essentially, in aviation maintenance technology, we have all of these different planes that you actually learn how to work on. So this is the mechanical systems like the engine. This can be the instruments and the dials that you work on a little bit more, the mechanics of it, not the electrical like we saw in avionics. But truly, after a program like this, you can go work at a actual airport or for an airline. So an example of that is we have some students that have worked in Hawaii for Hawaiian Airlines. We have many students across Arizona at Sky Harbor, some at Goodyear Airport, some at Mesa Gateway Airport. The introductory pay for this is normally about $30 an hour. So it is quite good pay because you learn a lot in this program and you do have a big commitment of time to be able to learn all that. So we have about a dozen different planes in here. They're all the varying sizes and ages and shapes, and some have single propellers and some have dual propellers. And then back here, I'll take you back there, we have one Learjet. So we work mostly on these propeller-based planes, but we do have one of the Learjets as well. But all of these, everything you're learning in here is applicable to the planes that you would actually see at airports. So this is our jet. We have some interesting planes in here as well. So this one over here that's kind of chunky was a previous kind of like an ambulance kind of thing. And then this really tiny little funky looking one is actually a kit plane that a couple built in their garage. So we do really have a little bit of everything in here that students learn how to work on. Over here we have our sheet metal shop. So planes have a lot of different metal components, obviously. But as you're learning how to really be a mechanic for airplanes, that means that you have to be able to work on that metal component as well. So things like rivets, things like patching pieces in the metal or potentially cutting new holes in. So we have lots of different practice pieces in here that students learn. Sheet metal is also very, very sharp and potentially pretty dangerous, so you learn potentially pretty dangerous, so you learn all of that. We also do a little bit of welding. We have a little bit of painting for this program as well. Very much just basics for those, but we do realize that if you replace a piece of metal on the plane, then that means that you do have to potentially repaint it, or if there's a critical failure, you might need to do some basic welding as well. Over here, we have some trainer systems, and then we also have an engine shop for students to work on and a landing gear shop. So these trainer systems take something like a hydraulic system that you'll see on an airplane, but this system on the actual airplane is very much crammed together, and these lines are kind of challenging to know really what's connected to what. So on this trainer system, students learn exactly how things are laid out and exactly how they work a little bit more. So then when you're looking at things much more compressed on the actual airplane, you can refer back to this in your memory. So this is a really good, really training tool. We have our landing gear shop because all of this is something that has to be maintained and replaced or fixed. And obviously landing is very critical for flight, so students learn all of those different components. And then we have our engine shop back here, so we have different components of engines, and we have engines on stands and stuff that students get to work on as well. So students learn the different components of the engine and really the cycles of the engine and how really they run, and then they also learn on the airplane itself. This is from a helicopter, so we do venture into that a little bit as well. And that is really our aviation maintenance technology program. Like I said, it's a 2-year program, the most time-intensive program of all the programs at West-MEC. So I'm going to see if Kaylee can hold this for me to answer a couple common questions. Okay. Connection okay here? Yes? Okay. So just wanted to wrap up with a couple really common questions. Kaylee, is there any questions that came in at all?
No.
Okay, perfect. So commonly asked questions, one is a little bit, I went into this a little bit earlier, for the application, really when does that take place? And that is sophomore year. The application is on our website. The website also does have a lot of information on there for all of our programs. So all the ones you saw today and all the programs on our other campuses as well. So you can check out our website at West-MEC, west-mec.edu, and there's a tab for high school students that has just a lot of information. So that's one great resource for you. Another piece that we encourage you to do is just talk with your counselors and your teachers and your family members and just start thinking about where you might want to go with your life and how you're going to get there, and then see if one of these programs might kind of help with that. So that is the big piece for the timing and kind of things that you should be doing now. As for really kind of some common questions for things like transportation, I want to make sure that we dive into that. So West-MEC does not provide transportation to our campuses. Some of our programs do have city bus lines that come really close, like our central campus here has a bus stop right outside the front gates. So sometimes that is really feasible for students. Another common thing is they'll either carpool with their family members or with other students, which is also definitely an option for you. The cost does vary for some of our programs. Most of them are $125, and that is a one-time fee. Some, like we talked about welding, are a little bit higher if they have a kit that students take with them. Our higher cost programs do also have some scholarships and grants to help offset that fee, and the higher cost programs, you do take something with you at the end of the program. The other really common question that I get asked is athletics. So for students that want to be on some sort of athletic team, how does that work with West-MEC? And the answer is it's challenging. So some of our programs are offered in the morning, so sometimes that works. But any way you put it, if you're in athletics and West-MEC at the same time, it will be a pretty long day. So that's just a conversation and kind of something to be thinking about if that would apply to you. Talk to your family members, talk to your counselor and your teachers, and just start thinking about it, which one might be the best fit for you, or if you could potentially do both at the same time. So with that, those are the real big questions that we get asked. If you do have questions later on, you're always welcome to email us at recruiters, RECRUITERS, at west-mec.org. You can also, on our website, under high school students, there's a banner that has an opportunity to schedule an office hours appointment with us if you want to meet with us one-on-one to really dive into any of our programs in more detail.